welcome to the first installment, The Learning Curve. And I know you guys are probably wondering what this is. The goal here is just to become a better version of yourself. Gracious enough to talk about their life and their professions and just ways that they've improved, as well as ways that you can improve as a viewer. So, welcome to The Learning Curve. Like I said, it's the first episode, and I'm grateful and gracious to have my homeboy here with me, born in the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna get specific. Born on the East Coast, right? Migrated to the yeah. Okay. Well,
Get specific.
yeah. He said,
Get
yeah. Born
specific. It's fine. I'm not. Hey man, I'm
born
out
in New
there now.
York. That's right. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? What borough? What borough was it?
Stand up. DX stand up from the
Yeah, from the
Bronx.
Bronx,
Gotta
right?
gotta rep.
Moved to
Gotta rep.
Michigan. I met him in high school, so I've known this brother a long time, and he's always been solid. Um, always been solid. Always had my back. You know what I mean? Always just been someone to talk to, and we've talked business several different times over the years. I'm just so proud of who he is and who he's progressing as a man, and he's got a lot of gems, man. So I hope y'all tune in and y'all ready to hear what we got to say and tap in. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest Nigel to the Learning Curve podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Man, I love the introduction. Definitely I'm happy to be here. It's just awesome to be the first guest. I feel like it's some big shoes to fill, but I look forward to having this conversation. Like you said, we talk business, we talk personal life. It's just crazy how long we've really known each other. Time is just flying. A lot of things change, so we're always continuing to look to evolve and grow. And I think that that's what you're providing here with this podcast is just another medium to give your experiences, your knowledge. I'll shoot it right back to you. I've always been proud to be your friend, consider you a brother, and now you're taking fatherhood head on, and you've always been the man with the brand. So this is just the latest addition to your many ventures. I'm just happy to be here, and happy to get into some of the topics that we discuss.
For sure. Oh,
Uh,
I appreciate you for joining me. Well, let's go. But I do want to kind of get your story a bit, right? You are a mortgage loan officer. My question is, right, how did you get in the field? How did you get into, that? What does it look like to become a mortgage loan officer? Kind of take us down that path, please.
Absolutely. So yeah, how did I get into the industry? Well, I always was someone that growing up, sales jobs were just kind of, there was a lot of
They rough.
uncertainty tied to them.
They
So,
rough.
it was never really never something that I saw myself going into. But that's also due to some of I don't want to say programming, but, you know, people who don't work sales jobs, they will let you know, hey, it's not guaranteed, which it isn't. But I never really got to hear about
Mm,
the upside of sales and the fact that your income isn't capped and that you truly will get what you put in, as opposed to certain situations you might find yourself in where you work extremely hard and you are very valuable to your company, but you're not really going to see what you produce. So I'll kind of start out with that. But really, it was just a situation where I was still kind of finding my way, seeing what I wanted to do, still going to school. And I was working a job that had tuition reimbursement. I was working at the hospital at the time, right?
which
So
hospital?
I was really just pursuing, I
That's right.
was gonna say, yeah, yep, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So really, I was just, pursuing my degree and just unsure of like what I wanted to do. I knew I liked journalism. I knew I liked to write, but I couldn't really narrow down exactly what I wanted to do. So in doing that, I had a friend that was working here at Gold Star Mortgage, and he had someone else at our gym that was working at Gold Star at the time. And I was just, I was like, okay, the pay was decent. It was a role at the time. He was a processor or a junior processor, just getting started out really. But, I was like, okay, I'm really just kind of interested on, what the job entailed,
Right.
but they weren't really looking for anyone at the time. And then just a year later, he actually approached me at the gym and was like, "Hey, my team's growing." He told me about the loan officer he was working with. He told me about the numbers that she was doing, and his career was really taking off fast with her within this team. So, they were seeing success, they were looking to expand, and he was just like, "Man, like knowing you, your personality, your demeanor, I think that you would be a great loan officer." I'm like, word,
You
okay.
had to persuade.
Something from a relationship building standpoint, from persuasive standpoint, as far as selling the program that I was offering to help my clients. I just always kept that in mind. And, whenever I would have these success stories, I was like, wow, like, I really, I have that pull and I think that I can translate that into a sales role. So I essentially felt like I was a salesman at the time, if that makes sense. That being said, I was like, hey, it sounds like a good opportunity. I like the income potential. Let's do it. So ended up actually coming into the industry and starting as a loan processor so that I didn't have to go right into sales. I didn't know anything about mortgages. You couldn't ask me a lick about mortgages at the time. So the goal was to come in, start out processing, and really just learn the game from the back end. And then that would prepare me to sell mortgages on the front end. So that's how I started out. And really, it was just through that relationship formed at the gym, got into the industry there and really just kind of laid the foundation to where I am today as far as being an originator myself. So, some of the traits that helped in those previous roles, it was just a matter of getting the knowledge, the confidence, compiling everything together. And
And
that's where we are today.
yeah, those other roles definitely I could see how they helped you. You know what I mean? Kind of put you those stepping stones put in place to help you prepare for the mortgage loan officer role, right? Is there like a certification that you have to be able to so you write the loans for so let's say I come to you and I'm like, "Hey, I'm looking to purchase a home." What would you tell me? What does that conversation look like?
So yeah, you're already onto it. So, you're either buying your house cash or you need a
That's
mortgage.
right.
Most people need a mortgage. I'll get to the process of becoming a loan officer. We'll touch on that. But to answer your question, yes, as a loan officer, I have the ability to originate loans. So in order to do that, you would come to me, yeah, Nigel, I'm looking to buy this home and
Or
I can't just throw you a loan for the property. Yeah, obviously I have to screen you, so I have to look at your credit. I have to look at your debt to income ratio. I have to basically ensure that I can approve you for a loan that is going to be within your financial means, which fit into the guidelines that are out there, depending on what loan program we can go with. So there's a variety of programs, but at the end of the day, it used to be the wild, wild west in this industry prior to 2008. So things are a lot more regulated now, and people aren't going to be getting mortgages that they can't afford. Well, let me not say that. You can still get a mortgage that you can't afford, but there are a significant amount of safeguards now. My role is to really take the puzzle pieces, and that's how I like to think of it, as just a lot of different puzzle pieces. I'm putting it in a box, shaking it up, seeing where things stand, and then trying to piece together the best mortgage possible for everyone's personal situation. And that's one of the cool things about this job is everyone's situations, goals are different, and their needs are different. So, just being able to speak to people, connect with people, see what they're trying to do, and advise as best as necessary and set them up for that step of home ownership, that step of moving towards building wealth. It's rewarding in the end once we finally put the whole
I
puzzle
love that,
together.
man. I love that. I do want to touch on as well just some other specific instances, right? Like, let's say I am like if I was buying my first home, what the process would look like, right? I'm coming to you, hey, I want to buy a home. You go, okay, let me get your financial background, get your finances together, put this all together, discuss what options we have, and then, like you said, make it almost like a puzzle piece. So connect the dots basically, and then present something to me. Is it the same process if I wanted to? So I am Jerry, and I'm, looking to buy my first rental property. Does the process change if I'm buying a secondary home? Does it? What are the? What does that look like? Does it change anything at all?
So no, really, the process doesn't really change. Still, there is, yeah, same thing. Looking at your income, looking at your assets. I mean, as far as a primary versus an investment, things
Mm-hmm.
change from a program standpoint. Um, Different things will change. Your terms are going to be slightly different for an investment. So you'll notice if you are getting quotes for rates for investment properties, they're going to be a little bit higher. And the reason for that is if it comes down to it and you only have one mortgage that you're going to pay as an
Mm-hmm.
investor, we expect that you're going to
Right.
pay for that primary. You're
Got to
not going
keep
to
my
pay for
own
that
home,
investment. From a
probably, if we're going under. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. If we're going under, exactly. So from a lender's standpoint, there is an increased risk when it comes to investments. Obviously, things happen that just kind of uh, goes with things on the investment side. But to answer your question, no, we're looking at the same things. We're looking at your debt to income ratio, assets, credit, all of that comes into play. Now, when it comes to investment properties, a lot of times you will run into situations where, depending on what type of income someone receives,
Mm-hmm.
let's say they're self-employed or they have a
Mm-hmm.
salon or just yeah, they're a hairstylist,
Okay.
for example. Let's just use that as an example. What you can run into a lot of the time is there's a lot of income that they're going to end up writing off. And that ultimately might make it a little bit harder to
Mm-hmm.
qualify with just their income alone for an investment property. So in the last couple of years, things have we have something called non-QM loans. So these are something that's a little bit different than your cookie cutter loans, and this is something that's going to help a lot of people build their portfolios and start gaining rental properties without necessarily having the income to afford it. So, and I want to talk a little bit about DSCR. So I don't want to get in detail too much, but essentially what that is if you have the down payment, a minimum down payment of at least 15%,
Okay.
20%. This is based on credit. What you can do is you can
Uh-huh.
qualify to buy a property based on its income
Got
potential,
you.
its rental income potential. So as long as that rental income covers the payment or more, if it covers the payment one to one, then you qualify
So
as
if
long as
I
you're
if
paying
I
it.
find
So
a, for
there's different.
example, if I find a duplex and on paper I can
Mhm.
show that it's been renting for $1,000 a month and the mortgage will be $1,000, I can then qualify for that home even if my financials don't necessarily line up to say I can pay the mortgage on it.
Exactly. So yeah, we're not looking at income documentation at all. We're just looking at your credit score and then checking to see that you have assets to make that down payment. And then we want you to have a couple months of reserves so that you can literally have no job and buy a property. So this is just kind of a situation
Mm-hmm.
where money talks and if you have money, you can make it happen. So that's just one thing that people are really starting to take advantage of because it allows them to have that flexibility of not necessarily having the income right away up front. And you can continue to do that and rinse and repeat. Uh, and then yeah, there's another strategy that I want to.
One thing we haven't touched on that I meant to touch on before was just like, what are the benefits of home ownership? What benefit do they have versus, renting a home? If I'm somebody who, is fresh out of college and I'm looking at the economy as it is now and I'm going, I don't want to pay $1,700 a month for a one bedroom apartment for me and Fido. My parents always told me buy a property as soon as you can, right? But in the state that we are in currently, what are the benefits of like home ownership?
Yeah, Mike, that's a great question. That's a great question because we're in a time where people are really hyper focused on interest rates. And I'm not saying that you should disregard them completely because, rates are a little bit higher right now, so affordability is a little bit lower than in times past as far as recently. And I think that's really what it is, right? We look at the COVID era and post-COVID, there were, very enticing 3% interest rates, 4%. A lot of people are still locked in at that level, and it's really hard to let go of the home that you're in right now with a great interest rate, especially when the reality is a lot of people who are locked into those lower interest rates, they cannot afford that same home today's rates. So that kind of plays into a lot of other things. But getting to your question, real estate, the beauty of it is this. Well,
Mm-hmm.
one, it's a necessity, right? You're
100%.
always going to need a place to stay. If you look at it from a basic standpoint, if you're paying rent, we all know you're not really paying into anything. If you want to look at interest rates, that's where we like to pretty much compare it to having an 100% interest rate.
Mm. Wow.
You're not really getting any return on that investment. Sure, there's perks of having maintenance to fix certain things, but at the end of the day, you're not building wealth. Real estate, the amazing thing about it, even if you're not investing, is if you look at real estate over time in history, it averages 3 to 5% on uh, on your investment as far as appreciation goes on your home. On top of that, you are also gaining equity through making your mortgage payments. So when you compound that effect by itself, essentially building wealth, you have good debt that's helping you, appreciate on an asset that's a significant amount of money. You compare that to the stock market, if you get a handsome return of 10% a year on your investment for $30,000, yeah, like that's
10%
a
is
good
good.
money.
Yeah.
That's yeah, 10%. Yeah, no one should be shaking their head at 10%, but getting 3 to 5% on a 200,000, 300,000,
Mm.
$400,000 house, we're talking, much more significant numbers. And then that equity allows you to really redirect those funds into other means, and maybe you want to reinvest into the home and increase the value even more so that that appreciation is maybe the same rate, but your asset is worth more at that point. Or you can pull that and then do what I just told you that you can do with DSCR and grab that second property and rehab that property and do the same thing down the line. So really and then once you have a property that's cash flowing as well, you have both the appreciation and you have someone paying your mortgage on top of that. So this is just ways that, you continue to build wealth. And once you get that second or maybe third property, if you decide to go that route and reinvesting into real estate, it's really
And
significant how
so,
fast those numbers can
go
grow.
ahead. Go
Also,
ahead. Go
one
ahead.
other thing I was just going to say that it is also it's a great way to leverage
That's
something
huge
something to think
in
about.
2025.
Yeah,
That's
that
huge.
it
And so,
absolutely in
what I
today's
heard
day and
you
age, for
say,
sure.
just to further break it down for those maybe who are not super familiar with real estate, or you guys are like at home and you're like, what are these terms? I've heard of equity, but I'm not sure what it is. So essentially, if I've purchased a home, we'll use simple numbers here, for $100,000, and in 10 years that home is now worth $300,000, I can then pull the equity out of the home, right? I can pull a certain percentage of that $200,000. I might not be able to pull the full 200, but I can pull a certain percentage of that $200,000. And what Nigel was explaining was I can then take that money and upgrade my home. So I can upgrade the kitchen, I can upgrade the bathrooms, I can upgrade the master bedroom, and then my home will appreciate for even more. Or, as Nigel stated as well, I can go and take that $200,000 and put it as a down payment on a new property, and now I have a rental income coming in